Hi, I'm Sabrina Viano, a financial educator with Mountain America Credit Union, and I'm excited to talk to you today about a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and that's retiring, or more specifically, getting close to retirement. Like many of you, I've spent my entire working years saving, and investing, and for a long time, retirement was on the horizon, and suddenly it's coming closer and closer. And the closer it gets, the more feelings I have about it. Will I have enough money? What happens if I retire when the stock market is down? And that's what we're going to address today. So if you're getting closer to retirement, maybe 2 to 10 years out, and you've been saving, then this presentation, Preparing to Withdraw, Investing for the Final Years and Beyond, is for you. So before we get started, I do want to mention I am not a licensed financial advisor. I'm here to give you general framework with the hopes that you can take the information that you've learned to your financial planner. Also, the content in this material is for general purposes only. These examples are not specific to any one individual. But let's get started. When we think about retirement, we think it's going to be all fun and games, or we hope it is. But honestly, there are some risks involved. You're doing the switch from saving to suddenly you have to spend your money. And not only that, you have to hope that your money outlasts you, or at least lasts as long as you live. And this can lead to some interesting human behavior. Now, some folks are wildly optimistic. Woo, I've done a good job. I've really saved. And now I'm going to travel the world. And maybe I'll buy that sports car I've always wanted. They're feeling really good about retirement. On the opposite end of the spectrum, some people are very fearful. They think, gosh, do I have enough? How long am I going to live? Did I plan this right? These are two different emotions, optimism and fear, but they can both result in the same risky behavior, and that's making rash financial decisions. On the other end of the coin, we have risk associated with market timing. Again, what if you retire right when the market takes a downturn? There is definite risk involved there. And so today, we're going to talk about how you mitigate risk, or at least minimize it. And that's really through a plan. So we'll focus on the plan. We'll talk a little bit more about market timing. And the plan is really all about creating fixed income and flexible income. And then we'll talk a little bit about the fun part, which is practicing for retirement. So let's launch in a little bit to market timing, because it makes a big difference. As you can see on the graph, we've got two people, person A in green and person B in yellow. Both people are going to retire at the same time. They both have a $500,000 balance. And over the course of 10 years, both their accounts, the market has an annualized return of 6%, again, annualized. And each of these individuals needs to withdraw 7% a year during their retirement. So if you look at person A in green, unfortunately, they retire right when the market takes a downturn. As the years go by, the market does start to swing up, and at the end of 10 years, the market's performing at positive 17%. Now, person B retires right when that market is in that 17% upswing. Things are great. But as the 10 years go by, they end up in the negative. Year 10, the market is back down 11%. So again, both of these do annualize out to 6%. However, look at the balance at the end of 10 years. Person A has nearly $250,000 less than person B. And that is the risk of retiring during a down market. So what do we do about this? Well, it's all about making a plan. Plan should start with goals. And so for goals, the fun part is think about what you need and what you want in retirement. Now, usually when I ask people, well, what do you need in retirement? The answer is food, water, shelter. But we want you to go a little beyond that. Instead, picture your average day-to-day retirement week or month. What do you think you're going to be doing during retirement on the average day? Then for your wants, this is the easy part. Picture what you really want out of retirement, right? So for example, if you are a big golfer, maybe you like to play golf 1 to 3 times a week. It's a great social outlet. And you picture yourself continuing that in retirement. And also, maybe when you retire, this is your chance to take exotic golf trips, right? You're ready to go to Scotland, to Ireland, to Dubai to play golf. It's going to be fabulous. So exotic golf trips, that's definitely a want. And some people will argue, well, playing golf once or twice a week, that's not a need. But think about it. If it's giving you an exercise outlet, also a social outlet, maybe it's really part of your community, then let's go ahead and put it in the needs if that's something that's really going to make a difference to your life. So again, we're not just speaking to food, water, shelter. We're hoping to get, what your average retirement week or month is like. So for your needs and your wants, you need to set up a plan that includes fixed income and flexible income. And then of course, there's always unexpected expenses that come into play. So let's dig down a little bit more. Fixed income is cash or cash equivalents. And what this does is it protects against market volatility. It's not, having cash on hand, it will not protect you when there's systematic collapse, but in general, it's going to protect you from the ups and downs. For your retirement wants, you're going to need flexible income, so some sort of growth. And we will get into this in a little bit more detail. But then let's go beyond that to the unexpected, right? So John and Jane finally retire, and they buy a beautiful condo in, let's say, St. George, Utah, right along the golf course, and things are fabulous until, and you fill in the blank. Until could be anything. Until could be, a lot of people go immediately to the horrible thing, until John has a stroke, right? That's an unexpected and very costly event. It could be somewhere sort of in the middle ground, until that condo assesses you $15,000 because it turns out there's black mold in all the buildings. It could also be something really happy. John and Jane's son and daughter-in-law have twins and decide to move to Hong Kong, and they really want John and Jane to come with them. And Hong Kong's a lot more expensive than St. George, Utah. So it could be anything, because along with death and taxes, the other thing you can count on in life are uncertainties. And so when you retire, examples of uncertainties are you don't know how long you're going to live. You don't exactly know what your health status will be. Maybe you have some idea, but things happen, right? And you certainly cannot predict the stock market, or we'd all be really wealthy. And you can't predict the economy. So these are uncertainties that you also need to include in your plan. So let's dig into the plan. We call this a goal-weighted allocation, but I like to call it the bucket method. And the idea here is you want to set yourself up in retirement with 3 different buckets. And bucket 1 is your strategic cash bucket. Ideally, you're going to have 1 to 7 years of cash or cash equivalents on hand. Then you're going to have a middle bucket that acts as a buffer between your cash bucket and your long-term growth bucket. And this is good for the, say, 7 to 15 year mark. Now, if you retire at, say, 65 and you live to 85, you absolutely still need that third bucket, and that's your longer-term growth bucket. So let's dig into each of them. Strategic cash is just that. It could be cash, cash equivalents. Maybe a CD, it could be a job, you continue working through retirement, anything that will protect you from market volatility. And so we say an ideal bucket would be filled with 1 to 7 years in cash. And the reason for that is markets go up and markets go down. And typically, and again, this is just typical, this is not a promise, but typically if a market is in a downturn, it'll pull itself out in around a 7 year mark. So that's why it's good to shoot for that 7 year mark. So how much do you actually need in cash when you go to retire? Well, that's fairly easy to figure out if you started with your goals. So we talked about the plan. The plan helps mitigate those kind of human emotions, and it mitigates market timing. Well, if you've started with the plan, then you know what your goals are. And you take those goals and you determine, well, how much do I need in retirement every year to meet those goals? You can subtract out what you'll earn in Social Security and then just multiply that figure by 7. And that's the amount of strategic cash you want to shoot for. Let's talk briefly about Social Security, because for many individuals, it's going to be a big part of their fixed income or their cash bucket. Now, some people will say, hey, there's no way Social Security is going to be around by the time I hit it. Maybe not. For the purposes of today's discussion, we're going to assume that Congress will act and Social Security will be there. So you can tell by the chart, we've got a little bit of an example here. You can take Social Security at different age points in your life. So we've got, let's say, 3 people. They've all earned equally over the course of 30 years, approximately $50,000. The earliest you can take your Social Security benefits is age 62. If you do take it at age 62, the government gives you what they call a reduced benefit. So you can see in the chart, if person number 1 takes it at age 62 and their monthly check is just a little over $1,300. Person B waits to their full benefit age. And for some of you watching this, it might be 66, and for some of you, it will be 67. It really depends on your birthday. But they wait to their full benefit age, and their check is over $1,900. So about a $600 difference between taking it when your actual age is versus taking it early. Now, the government likes to sweeten the pot a little bit. They say, hey, if you let us hold on to your money a little bit longer, we'll give you an increase. So if you waited to that last moment to take your benefit, look at the difference. Person 3 is netting, their check is over $2,400 per month. So a full $1,000 more than the individual who took it at age 62. So you might see this chart and say, oh, well then I'm going to wait till 70. And there is no one right or wrong answer. The thing is, you take it not when the government dictates you take it, or when the pot is sweetened. You take it when you need it. So maybe in your family, you have a history of longevity, and your relatives tend to live into their late 90s. Well, you know what? In that case, if you can afford it, then waiting to 70 might be a good idea. But maybe you're looking at this plan and you think, gosh, I'm a little short on strategic cash. I'll have to pull too much out of my actual investments, and my investments might not take me to the end of my life. Well, then maybe you take it at age 62. I mean, if you think about it, if in this example, if you take it at age 62 and one person takes it at 70, the person who took it at 70 is out over $131,000 than the person who took it at 62. So they have to live several more years in order to kind of make up that difference. So a lot of people get really nervous about taking it at 62, but I think that $131,000 illustrates that it could be the right decision for you. It's very, very individual, and it's something that you want to talk to your financial advisor about. Okay, let's move on to what I call the adaptable bucket, or that middle bucket. The adaptable bucket is made up of a variety of, say, investments. So you're probably still in the market. Maybe in this bucket, you're also working. The big difference here is for the cash bucket, you were working because you needed to. With the adaptable bucket, maybe you have a part-time job and you're working just towards those wants, right? So you took a part-time job that pays for 2 of those golf trips per year. This could also be real estate, either on a passive or an active basis. Perhaps in your working years, you invested in real estate for rental income. And now you've got these leased out, maybe you have a property manager, and so it's very passive. You're just collecting the rent check and skimming off the income. Or it could be very, very active. Perhaps in retirement, you decide to go in with a couple of buddies and you're flipping homes. So the middle buffer, it really could be anything, but it probably will also be in the market. And its job is to be there for about 7 to 15 years and create a buffer between your strategic cash bucket and your long-term growth bucket. So the concept is, with this middle bucket, you are going to use it to refill your cash bucket. So as your cash bucket drains down, you're going to ladle in to this middle bucket and refill the cash. And as this middle bucket drains down, you're going to ladle into that growth bucket and refill the middle. So you're constantly refilling straight down to the cash and you're living off the cash to give you a buffer from down market trends, and also to help you emotionally feel secure. One important thing when we talk about this middle bucket is diversifying. So many of you have heard of the S&P 500. It's made up of 11 sectors. Now, there's a concept, there is an S&P 500 index fund, and many of you may well have bought into it, and you think, great, I'm in this S&P 500 index fund, so I am diversified. And you are, to a point. Better might be to truly diversify. And what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, we'll use for easy math $1,100. So you could invest $1,100 into the index fund, or you could break that $1,100 down into chunks of, say, 100 and invest in each of the 11 sectors. Now, what this conceptually allows you to do is buy low, sell high, right? So when we think about having to ladle out of our middle bucket, if we have our middle bucket truly diversified and healthcare's on fire and technology's not, and we need to refill some of our cash, we can skim off that healthcare because we've truly diversified. With the fund, it's all kind of intermingled. This is not easy, and if you're really into investing, maybe you do this yourself, or maybe this is a concept that you bring again to your financial advisor and see if it will work for you. But it is good to think about because it really allows you to take advantage of market timing. Okay, finally, we have our growth bucket, our long-term bucket. It is there for 15 years plus. Because again, we need to make sure that our investments last our lifetime. We need to beat inflation. And so this bucket is probably going to still be filled with a lot of stocks, bonds, ETFs, index funds, things like that. Things that might be a little more volatile, but will give you more growth. And so think about this. If you happen to be listening to this and you're in your 40s, you're probably invested in things like this right now, right? Because you don't need it for another 15 years. Well, when you're 65, you will still hopefully have a need for 15 plus years in the future. So you wouldn't change your investment strategy that much. And again, this is something that you want to take back this plan to your financial advisor and see, will it work for you? Okay, so maybe you've been thinking, all right, I get the plan, I get this bucket concept, and I get that you start with goals, but you know what? I haven't really thought about my goals. If you haven't thought about your goals or you're struggling to really think about what your goals are for retirement, I'm going to suggest the alignment model. And this is a great thing to take some time to do on your own, or if you're married, do it as a couple. You want to start with your values, not your goals. So you start with what's intrinsically important to you. So these are not things. These are, hey, I value family. I value religion. I value security. I value freedom. You kind of get my drift. So you start there and you make a list of what is really important to you on the inside. And the idea with the alignment model is your values drive your goals. And then your goals drive your behaviors, or in this case, will drive your plan. So values to goals, goals to plan. That is really what you want to sit down with your partner and come up with. Now to the fun part, and that's practicing retirement. So why do you want to practice retirement? We are creatures of habit as human beings. And tends to what happens is what we do is what we continue doing. So what you do before retirement is what you'll do after retirement. However, a lot of people, myself included, have a lot of wildly different goals for retirement than what their day-to-day looks like, right? So I'll just use myself as an example. I have this dream of retiring and buying a really cool Sprinter van and driving around the country for maybe a year and living out of my van. Sounds fabulous. Inexpensive. However, I have never driven an RV and I have never camped in an RV. So for me, I should really practice this because it's a goal of mine, but before I put a plan into place to make sure I hit that goal, I need to make sure I like the goal, right? I mean, maybe you've known friends or relatives who talk all about traveling when they retire, but they've never gone anywhere. They've spent their whole life working hard, saving money, and kind of staying close to home. Well, it's a good idea for these folks before they retire. Maybe go and say, if their dream is cruising the world, well, go on an anniversary cruise before you retire and see how you feel. I think we've all met people who get home from a big trip or a big cruise, and you say, how was it? And they say, I'm exhausted. I hated it. I got seasick. So you don't want to end up in that situation. So you do absolutely want to practice some retirement, and this is your chance. I'm giving you a license. Go have fun. This is your chance to practice it before you set those goals and start saving towards those goals. If you've been thinking this sounds good, but I'm a little bit nervous, I'm not sure I do have enough saved. If you are over 50, the IRS does allow catch-up contributions. So if you're still working and your company has a 401k, per IRS guidelines, you can increase your contributions by $6,500 over somebody under 50. Similarly, if you don't have a 401k but you have an IRA, you're allowed to increase your contributions by $1,000. So again, if you feel like, or your financial planner says, you know what, you're not quite there, you're sort of in the yellow zone, then you may want to consider looking at your budget and seeing what you can do to move more money into these retirement accounts. Now, this example is based off 2021. The IRS changes these guidelines every year, so if you're not watching this in 2021, then you may want to Google this. Just Google IRS guidelines catch-up retirement, and you'll find it. Okay, so to summarize, think about your goals. Use that alignment model and come up with some goals so that you have some needs and wants in retirement. And then take the concept of these buckets, the fixed income versus flexible income, to your own financial advisor and see what they think and build a plan specific to you. Finally, don't forget to practice some of your retirement goals so that you know they're the right goals for you. And for more information, you can go to macu.com.